So, hi everyone, I'm Don Sashi. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of our Teaching and Learning Center, and you have found your way to our professional development series. We're very excited that you've done that. Our professional development series meets on Wednesdays at noon over Zoom all throughout the academic year. We meet in real time. We also archive these. We put the recordings up on our TLC website so you can check those out. Now, we have lots of events, and we also give a professional development certificate, and my colleague will drop that information for you into the chat. It's also available on our website whenever you want to go and see it. But we have GTA professional development certificates as well as certificates for staff and faculty. Now, the certificate means that you're interested in promoting your own teaching excellence. If you want to promote the excellence of others as well, you can potentially be a TLC fellow. So if you're a faculty member wanting to do that, we also have information about being TLC fellows at that link that Jeff has dropped into the chat. Trying to see what other now. Oh, so way early reminder at the end of the semester on the Monday of finals week. I don't remember what that date is off the top of my head, but on the Monday of that finals week, we're going to have our SOTL showcase. SOTL is an acronym that stands for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. And that's an opportunity for people to give some oral presentations as well as some poster presentations about their research or innovative teaching practices, those kind of things, research related to teaching. And we're very excited. We've done this for a number of years, and I'm just putting that out just now as a little bit of a teaser. We'll have kind of more formal information and a formal call for proposals a little bit later this semester. I also want to alert you that we have a TLC Hub, which is a Teams channel by which we can kind of share information about events and these sorts of things. We can ask each other questions. We can post things that we're working on, etc. So definitely do check that out. And if you attend one of these events, we'll add you to that hub. If you don't want to be part of the hub, we'll take you back off. That's fine too. Um, Next week's event. I always kind of let you know about the next week's event before we get to this week's event. Next week's event is going to be an important one. It's actually a need to know event, and we're going to be having the CARE and the CAPS offices come and talking. And those are going to be offices that are helping us create better student experiences, particularly after something has been maybe not so good. And students need some help and some support. And it's important that we know about those services so we can direct our students to those services. It's also possible that we might want to make use of some of those services and not suffer in silence. So that will be next week's event. We're very excited about that. But today's event is going to be awesome because today we have Dr. Jennifer Smith, who's going to be talking about the importance of connection in the age of AI. Dr. Smith wrote an article about this recently that I had the opportunity to read. It was amazing. And now we're going to get the seminar version of that same sort of thing. So, Dr. Smith, the floor is yours. I'm very excited for your presentation today.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate being invited to do this. I'm not sure that I classify myself as an expert on AI at all. However, I'm also not a Luddite. Like, I understand the role of AI and I appreciate it, but we're all in this kind of together trying to figure out how to work it. I was just in meeting with Bree from the first year experience. We were talking about an EdSep class that I'm going to be teaching in the fall. And we were looking at the pre-made syllabus and there was no section in there on AI. And I said, how are we all, we need to do that. So she's like, yeah, we're kind of planning ahead. And every one of us in this room that we're in right now, this Zoom room, are dealing with AI in some way. So I come in asking for your advice and your input as well, recognizing that everybody's experience on this is fairly unique. But let me start by kind of sharing my background a bit. I was a late learner a little bit and did my dissertation about 5, 6 years ago. And my topic was interviewing women between the ages of 35 and 50 who had a master's level education minimum, and I had two doctoral participants. And my qualitative interview was about how they were engaging in artificial intelligence text-based relationships. So this was kind of before it became kind of a big topic in the news to kind of see what are people getting out of these relationships and why are they engaging in them? Why are they choosing them? So that's kind of what started me on this. And so I've been kind of looking at all the literature as it's come along, as we've started to progress toward a place now where it's immersion. And now everybody is using this for a variety of reasons. Some are using it as a therapist. Some are using it as a romantic relationship. Some are using it as a deity to go to ask any and all questions. Our students are using it to augment their learning. And so we have to figure out what impact is this having on us. And Sherry Turkle is a researcher who was hired by MIT in the 90s. And she was hired to study the social impact of technology, and she specifically started talking about gaming. And, this is when people thought gaming was the worst thing that could potentially happen to the human brain. And now we look back, and now the literature is saying if you have a choice between social media and gaming, choose gaming. So, things have really shifted in our environment. But looking at sort of, it comes out now at, all her research, she recently was talking on the role of AI, and one of the things she said that really had an impact to kind of start this discussion off is how is AI affecting us and who are we becoming because of it? With this understanding that we tend to nurture what we love and we love what we nurture. And so our technological relationships really kind of have started to supplement for face-to-face relationships for a variety of reasons. One, we can cultivate them whatever way we'd like. So if these are people we don't like, we can completely block them, or we can decide to ghost them, as the kids use the term. We can decide to engage in forums where our opinions are validated, right? So very much confirmation bias. And we're getting to a state now where our students are really struggling with theory of mind and the idea that they can actually see through other perspectives. So all of these things are things that are happening around us. It's impacting the classroom, it's impacting student engagement. And so I kind of just wanted to share some thoughts on this. This is kind of a lay of the land of what we're going to talk about. But I want to open this up to let you know that I know that as much as I'm sharing here, I would also really like to hear um, your your perspectives and your input as I share through this. So can everyone see my slides here? Great. Okay, so a couple things I want to share first off is I think you probably have been hiding under a rock if you've not heard about the information about having our society dealing with an epidemic of loneliness. So I referenced the 2023 Surgeon General's advisory on this just to kind of give a lay of the land and foundational information. I have the opportunity to teach a class called Health Psychology, and one of the things I share with the students at the beginning so that they understand why I'm forcing them to engage in social assignments is the understanding that it would actually be better for them to smoke 15 cigarettes a day than not have social engagement. And the formula has actually been created by Dr. Holt Lundstedt, who did a global study in 2010 addressing this issue of isolation and loneliness and its impact on health. And so these are some of the pieces that I pulled from this, from the Surgeon General. But just looking at this, the lack of social connection poses significant risk for health and longevity. Lacking social connection can increase the risk for premature death as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In addition, poor, insufficient social connection is associated with an increased risk of disease, including a 29% increase in risk of heart disease and 32% increased risk of a stroke. And it's associated with anxiety, depression, and dementia, among others. And so these are all kind of foundational pieces that we have to recognize as we talk about how our students are engaging online with AI, as well as, all of the other myriad of opportunities to engage online. But these are foundational reasons to me as a teacher to recognize that my role in the classroom is to engage our students in a social way that they're not being engaged otherwise. And this is kind of foundational. And Dr. Castley Killam has come out with this term called social health. We talk about mental health and physical health, but what is the role of social health in our long-term survival as a species, as well as, healthy longevity? So this kind of talks about that a little bit. That's kind of foundational. So other materials kind of share that we have been really set up for this AI launch. We have slowly kind of the frog in the hot water, and I like this technological frog here, recognizing that we've come from having exposure to AI, or exposure to technology, our relationships being changed to technological relationships. All of our relationships have an online component. I would be interested to find out if anybody has relationships that doesn't also have an online component to it. So grandma's on Facebook, all the cousins are on Facebook, they're on Instagram, somewhere they're sharing an online profile. So we have engagement on both platforms, which can give us illumination into the insight of some of these people's values that perhaps they haven't shared with us openly. So, you find out that, say, grandma is supporting a political party that maybe we don't necessarily align ourselves with. We love spending time with grandma. Grandma's wonderful. She's kind, she's nurturing, she bakes beautiful cookies. We love time in her kitchen. But when we read those political views, does that then alter our feelings about grandma? So it creates kind of this space where we can't always align how we feel about someone based on their online profile and their face-to-face profile, right? And so it becomes confusing and it becomes a space where maybe then we change the way we value some of those really authentic relationships because of these perceptions. So we've come to expect more from technology than we do from each other. So, what is being found now in the literature, and I'm going to reference a study that I found recently from the Wheatley Institute out of Brigham Young University, where they studied a large swath of people between the ages of 18 and 30, kind of assessing their communications with AI and very surprising findings about how it's impacting them from a loneliness perspective, how they're relying on it for romantic relationships, and how many of them are doing this. So, quite a large number. Um, there was also an article recently in the New York Times, Boy Meets AI, and they were talking about the role of artificial intelligence in romantic relationships and people who are choosing this, making a very conscious choice. Part of it is because they can curate it, right? There is no challenge in an AI relationship. There's no challenge in your AI experience. You go online, this AI is programmed to be extremely sycophantic, to agree with you, to tell you how wonderful you are, that what a thoughtful and thought-provoking question you've asked, how brilliant your finding is. And all of this is programmed. This is a hollow shell of programming. But we look at these responses, and because we are longing for connection, we're seeing things that aren't there. And we have become more comfortable sharing with our artificial intelligence how we're feeling, which is kind of demonstrated by the fact that the American Psychological Association came out in March of 2015 with a statement about artificial intelligence cannot be used as a therapist. It is programmed, but it is programmed with very generic understanding. And again, understanding is not even a word I should use. Very generic materials that it can access to respond to pleas for help. And we've seen a couple of cases where AI has actually talked someone into suicide, talked someone into harming self, because it is not a feeling entity. And I think one of the things reason I bring this up is because as educators, what is our responsibility in educating our students to understand the role of AI as a tool? And so I open that question up to ask, what is our role as educators to help our students understand the role of AI as a tool rather than an entity that is involved in our lives with, qualifications that we often only assign to those of the wisest in our population or high deity? How do we do that? What is our role in this?
Yeah. Hi. Um, as a GTA, I'm not yet to the level
Hi.
of a faculty. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as a GTA, I'm not yet to the level of a faculty, but I'm glad that you are talking about this because these are some of the questions that I've been asking myself lately, and I wrote about this in Faculty Focus that would be coming out next month. And I wasn't even looking at the relationship from like a romantic perspective. I was looking at more of the therapy, mental health perspective of students and like teenagers. And the issue of this suicide communication came in. So one of the things I brought up as educators, what is our role? Because we are mostly asking students not to use AI in academic integrity or we are asking students not to use AI for cheating and stuff like that. But from the data, we can see that students are using AI beyond just homework or assignments. They are forming this kinds of attachments to this bots. So what can we do as educators to help them in using it ethically and responsibly? I don't have that answer yet, but I would love to hear what others have to say about that.
I would too. I think we're all learning, right? This is definitely a journey we're all on.
Jennifer, I was going to say your original question is kind of so big and so existential, it's almost rhetorical. It's almost like, unable for us to kind of answer it. And I feel like once I sort of have a handle on something, that it progresses or I've missed a nuance or those sorts of things, I don't know. And I don't feel completely confident as a faculty member knowing how AI is best used as a tool in all ways. So I think one of the things that I'm doing is I'm trying to think about letting my students help me understand. So I'm having a lot of conversations with them. I'm thinking about, what is the not just, making my assessments AI proof because I don't think that's really the case, but kind of thinking about where is the value in my assignments so that you're not going to want AI to do it. Because AI does a really good job at some easy foundational stuff. How do we use that to support the real critical depth in what we're trying to do in our classes? And I don't know the answer to that question, but these are some of the questions I'm posing to myself.
Okay. So yeah, and definitely in how we translate our topics and material, right, within our various disciplines, certainly we're grappling with that. But are we responsible? And I guess this is like a bigger picture question. Are we responsible to teach our students and children, but our students specifically, that this is a tool? And and are we responsible to be talking about this and grappling with this in the classroom?
Hey, I would say, yeah, this is a huge question. I appreciate it beyond the classroom. So we're getting way beyond, can you use this on an assignment? But is it truly, I think for their overall well-being, as somebody who teaches about well-being, it is going to become, it's important now to incorporate this into the lessons we're giving about when I talk about relationships, not forgetting to include this most recent information about how some people are finding relationships and the potential downfalls of that. Um, so that just means me being as current as possible in this realm and feeding it in. I think right now where it fits really well. In my other classes where I don't see its fit, I haven't thought about that yet. Like how is this going to encompass into me working on their potential well-being if that's not the direct topic? I don't know that yet.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is the challenge right there. If the topic isn't about their well-being and it's about, other material, all the things we're teaching at this university, it's very difficult to spend time in a math class necessarily talking about, hey, are you socializing enough and are you choosing AI as your social companion? Um, but I don't think that a lot of our students understand the orientation of AI. They don't understand how it's programmed. They don't understand the impact that it's having societally on professions. Um, this last semester, I had an issue in my class with students using AI in an assignment where it was really not necessary, not needed, but it changed the grading curve. And the students who did AI performed really well, and the students who did it the way it was designed had errors. And those errors are very human and should be valued, right? And so I actually had to present that to the class, and the perspective was very surprising how open they were to the fact that this was altering how people were perceived and what their capacities. I was surprised. And I don't think they'd ever thought about it before. So these are the kinds of questions that how do we even frame them? How do we promote them? How do we, because these are people we're producing into the world, not just students, not just a student who's learned this particular topic, but these are people that we're hoping to leave our sphere with more than just a knowledge base, right? A feeling about self and an understanding of their space in the world is my perspective as an instructor. And
Je-
any thoughts on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jennifer, I love what you're saying because it makes me think about as an institution, the way that we can do this work also beyond the classroom. And so what would it look like for students during orientation, both undergrads and grads, to get a session on ethical use of AI or just what AI and what that means for you as a student, just in the same way that we teach college students to be a good college student. I do a lot in my own classes, and my discipline when I do teach is literature and cultural studies. I do a lot to mentor students on how to be good college students. So I talk about go to your professor's office hours, seek out, you want build those relationships so you can get those letters of recommendation. So could we add AI usage as part of that teaching students that skill set while knowing that we don't have all the answers, right? Because it is so new. But I think normalizing it as part of our classrooms rather than just you can't use it. I mean, and I'm preaching to the choir, right? So
Yeah.
instead of just like you can't use it, don't use it. But I think what you're trying to communicate and get across in your presentation is just the importance of normalizing it. We know students use it, and let's talk about how they're using it. And that's the work we can do, even as a math instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The term ethical is, I feel like too, you talk about ethical, and in the classroom, the students hear don't. They hear don'ts. They hear these limits, this confine. And I feel like
Hmm.
that's a super important piece to this, but also
Hmm.
how are you using this in your own world? I had a student in class the other day saying, "Oh, I had this question about something you mentioned in class, so I asked chat." That's what she calls her AI. And it's just, let me ask chat and see what chat says about what you said. And I'm like, this has become such a normal conversational. This is, instead of calling grandma to ask how to make cookies, you're typing in chat, how do I make cookies?
Hmm.
So you have now gotten rid of this whole idea of using the people who in your life who have this expertise, which, that's us, but also the wisdom of our grandparents and our aunts and our, who's the guy down the street who knows how to fix cars? Well, I'm going to just ask chat how to fix my car. I'm not going to go down the street and ask the guy who's been doing it for 30 years. Right.
And
So
yeah. And I think just like what you said, like also sharing how we're using it, I think that
yeah.
goes a long way. Like I would share with my students, like I can't tell you how many times chat or Microsoft Copilot has talked me off the edge during a work day, so it can be
Yeah.
really handy. But sharing that with students, that vulnerability, right? This is how I've used it. But this is how I've kind of thought about it and taken a second look at it, given the research and what we know and
Yeah. So, and I hope you don't mind that I pick on what you just shared about how it talked you off the cliff after a bad work day. Are we supplementing that instead of, say, calling a friend?
Yeah,
Are we changing the dynamics of what we're using it for, And in that moment,
correct.
other people that we may rely on are probably working. So we may not have the chance to call them. So it can be that intermediary. However, it can't supplement because it's synthetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you're both speaking to something really important, which is just drawing students' attention to what AI is, what it isn't, what it can do, what it can't do. I'm teaching an online course this semester, and my AI policy starts with like, if you are going to use, like, defining what generative AI is, and then if you are going to use a generative AI tool, here are some things to keep in mind. And I have a bullet point list of a lot of the big research that's come out recently about what it does to the environment, who owns the information that's put into AI, and a number of other things. And then in my class, I have a syllabus scavenger hunt, and I ask them to comment on that portion of the syllabus. And I was kind of surprised at the number of students that were just like, I had never considered like all the different things. They were like, I had never considered about like that what I put in AI is then owned by the AI platform, and like issues of privacy, issues of copyright. Um, I think that not a lot of them were as surprised about things like the environmental impact. I think that gets tossed around kind of a fair amount, but thinking a little bit more about like what it does to their cognitive abilities and abilities to think if they're constantly offloading, these mental tasks to AI. I think that gives not making it a like you can or cannot use this, but really focusing on like what does it mean to use AI and having a conversation about it, I think is really what students are craving right now and what they need.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely. And like you just said, that the information they upload is then owned by the server. And an example given by Dr. Turkle when she was talking about how she was exploring more of this, and Replica was as a relationship artificial intelligence application. It's the one I studied when I was preparing to do my qualitative study. And it not only jumps tracks from like you get to select if you want a friend or if you want a romantic relationship, but it jumps tracks in the middle if you say anything that could potentially lure it to a sexual connotation. But once you sign up in the agreement that you haven't seen, because of course it's 25 pages long, just like our, iPhone updates and things like that, it says that it has then, as soon as you sign in with your email, it has access to all of your emails. So it goes in and now it's reading all of your emails. It has your history and it pulls all that information in to create a profile about you to make that engagement more personal. And now all that information is out there. Now it's somewhere else, and our students aren't recognizing that, right? So what else are our responsibilities, I guess, as I kind of move ahead and kind of think about how can we create more tangible and meaningful socialization in our classrooms? Because, like was mentioned last week, and I can't remember who said this, but they said that, if there's something they want to learn, they could type it into AI and get a cursory understanding of something. What they can't get is a person to grapple with the topic on. And that's what we can provide in the classroom, which kind of started me thinking, um, the fire hose of information that we have been perhaps feeling motivated to present in the classroom, do we need to cut a little bit of that back in lieu of allowing them to grapple with a topic just to learn how to do it?
I'm going to say yes. The quick answer is yes. I'm finding more and more that they, like Don was saying about going through assignments to see what they value. I think to make the classroom something that they value as well. And that is often now leaning into discussion, and even if you need points for it, like the discussion piece of interaction and having them interact in a classroom is so important with their neighbors because they're not going to do it themselves, even if they sit by the same person every day all semester long. So setting that from the get-go that you need to meet the people and then you're going to talk to them like every single day. I'm finding students like it. Like they get loud now in my classrooms. They're
Yeah,
not, it's like I gave them permission. I told them they had to talk to a neighbor, at least one, and they do it and they get excited about it. And even I walk around and I monitor, rate the quiet ones who look intimidated, and I encourage them and
yeah,
invite them into a group. And then you see them take off as well. So even if they're afraid to approach a group and to go say hi, I walk them right over. I walk them right in and say, "Can they join you for this little
yeah,
session?"
yeah,
And they tend to engage so much more. And on my TVALs from last semester, when I asked them some of their biggest takeaways, I had a handful in my huge child development say they made some of their best friends in class.
yeah,
And it stemmed from them having to work with them constantly, and they couldn't do this outside of the classroom. So I think, yes, we absolutely can cultivate a space where they have social interaction in the space that we're in, still covering the same information.
yeah. Yeah, thank you, Natalie. And I really appreciate that for a number of reasons. But, in the social sciences, obviously, we're looking at the humans that we're teaching, but we know that um, people dealing in high stress and trauma are not teachable. So you walk them into a classroom and they're going to sit down in front of you. And if they're dealing with extreme issues of isolation and loneliness, where they are on, their systems are firing and they're feeling this, this sense of exclusion, They're going to sit there and take notes and they're going to be present. But learning is integration, right? Learning means they have to feel safe in your space to do that. Which means I feel like they need to feel like we know where they are and what they're dealing with, right? So there's things coming in the chat, but I can't see them. I don't know if someone needs to. Can let's see here.
Yeah, I can read some chat
That
comments to you.
that would be great. Thank you, Don, because
So earlier on, someone said that teaching students to use AI as a tool responsibly and appropriately when the context of our own lives is going to be important. Um, Someone then said it's related to an early part of the conversation, but emphasizing that errors are normal and okay, is very important in the classroom and in life, and something we should teach. That learning from failure and mistakes is important, and talked about kind of noticing that students are very hesitant and reticent about making mistakes. Um, there are some other kind of comments about how you can incorporate in those into your class that I'll kind of point readers to look at if they're interested in. But then one of the comments actually said that they might rate essays higher that have errors in them, to kind of show the value for the process and not using AI and to embrace failure.
yeah, I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
When I talked about this, state that our students are in and especially dealing with loneliness or isolation, um, an early study on whether or not cortisol, which we know cortisol is released when we engage with people, right? And it happens when you're in meaningful conversation, when you get a hug, when you're sitting with your animal, when you're engaging in, human on human contact. And so they've done a study on whether or not cortisol is released when someone's engaging with artificial intelligence. And they did not find a notable amount of cortisol released in this. And I only found one study on this. And I can certainly post the link in here if you'd like to take a look at it. But it's talking about, we're talking about human beings sitting in our classroom, and we have to continue to create value for them, which means we have to help them feel valued. So this just feels like I don't have an answer. I wish I could come here and say, guess what? I figured it all out, and this is what you do. I don't have that. What I have is just grappling with things that we can do. Um, so I feel like this is just a couple of suggestions, educating our students on what AI is, its role as a tool. And I love sharing with them the impact of our footprint using it and the impact it is having on our environment, which is epic. And I don't think students have even started to understand the impact that's having. Less don'ts and more do's, meaning assignments and socialization. And sorry about the typo there. Um, but having more engagement with our people within the classroom, more classroom management skills, kind of working on those ways to grapple with big topics rather than more topics. Social engagement. So these are just some ideas, but I would really love to hear kind of what your thoughts are on other things that we can do um, to try to help alleviate this sense of loneliness that students are feeling and be involved more in engaging them in understanding how AI is actually generating and creating more of a sense of loneliness.
So Jennifer, one of the things that I think is very hard for us to kind of grapple with the kind of the AI connections versus the real connections is the constant availability. Right.
Right.
So there's no waiting. If I go on ChatGPT, it's ready for me. Right. So it's not a situation where, if I need to talk to someone and make an actual connection, they need to be available and I need to know how to get to it. There might be transportation involved or whatever that is. I think it's really, really hard to compete with that convenience.
It
And I
is.
think that's where things are kind of going. Then you kind of put in like the sycophantic nature of it, all the feedback is positive, right? It's the
Right.
AI is not going to say, "Hey, I want to watch a different movie than the one you want to watch." It's not going to say, "Hey, you really made the mistake in that situation you're telling me about." They're not going to get that. So it's really this ever-present echo chamber, and I'm not 100% sure we can compete with that if someone just wants to be validated, right? The unconditional validation that AI can provide is something that's really hard for us to do socially. So I think we've got to kind of talk more about what those limitations are. So when you say it's like hollow shell program or whatever word you use to kind of talk about that reflection, like all your ideas are good, that's really an important point to make to students. When like, it's right. It's not really a real person out there saying this to me, right? It's
Mhm.
a program that doesn't know anything about me other than this digital footprint that I have that is responding. Um, Andy just dropped this awesome quote into the chat that says, has on her desk, the dumbest person you know is being validated by ChatGPT right now. Right.
Yeah,
And what happened is that person is happy to be validated by ChatGPT. So I
right,
feel like the issue is the creation of the loneliness is you don't realize it, right? You mentioned the
right,
frog in the boiling water at the beginning.
right,
It's very hard to persuade our students that this isn't necessarily a good thing when it seems like such a good thing. And
right.
that's what I'm grappling with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely kind of at the essence of what this problem is. I mean, since the 1950s, we've been studying parasocial relationships, when people were throwing themselves at the Beatles and now here we are with these parasocial relationships where we name our chat GBT friend, something that we chat. Hi, chat. Tell me what I should have for dinner tonight. I've got these ingredients, and immediately it spits out a recipe. And you're right, the immediacy is one of the biggest challenges to overcome. But I don't know. Somewhere in there has to be a message where we share, you are investing time, you are nurturing a relationship that can do nothing for you ever. You need to go to the hospital, chat's not taking you. You need a bowl of soup, chat's not going to show up. You need a shoulder to cry on because someone passes away in your family. You could get a hologram AI that you could sit and talk to that looks just like the person you just lost. But all that does is keep us from living in reality, right? So I know I'm posing a question that has no answer and is completely frustrating. And when I proposed this last semester, I thought, why did I do this? Because this seriously hasn't got an answer. But it is one of those things that we have to be aware of that our students are using to a really high degree, and it is harming them. It is harming their frontal lobe development. It is harming their ability to see any other perspectives other than their own. It is harming their ability to develop patience, to develop or grapple with topics they don't understand, which is the whole point of college. So there, I've just laid to bear all of the challenges of the world, and now you probably never want to speak to me again. I get that. I'm sorry.
Just because it's challenging doesn't mean we're not supposed to talk about it. Oh, and I will say, and I don't know if this is a good segue. I was talking to Jennifer earlier, and so she thought it would be helpful to bring up in this group that already we're not even fully into week 2, and 2 of my online students have asked to meet with me. And this has never happened before. It's an asynchronous course. They normally jump in and go. They rarely come see me for office hours, which isn't great, but it's truly an asynchronous experience. And this is the first time within a week I've had 2 students want to meet me. Like they want to know who I am, they want to see me. One came physically into my office because he was nearby, and truly just to see that I'm a human, I think, that I'm a person. And the one today was like, asked a few syllabus questions, and I was like, can you tell me about you? Like,
Yeah.
what can I know about you that like influences how you teach? And I was just like, oh, okay. Like I love connection with students, but my online class I normally don't feel as connected to because it's all over email and announcements. So this is new, but I'm excited. So now I'm questioning if I should offer, just outright offer in these first 2 weeks a one-on-one, not office hours or anything, a one-on-one if they would like to meet me, and see how many take me up on it. Just a 15-minute like coffee chat,
Mhm.
to see if anyone else needs it.
Yeah, I think that reaching out is something that I'm seeing more with students too. Last week I had office hours. I had 18 students come through my office hours for this or that question. And I've never had that before. I don't know if it'll continue through the semester, but it was just like they're sitting there and they want to be in the presence of a human. And this summer, I had a student reach out who'd been a TA for me, so she had my number. And she reached out to me in a text and said, Dr. Smith, can you meet me for coffee at Starbucks? Sure. So I found a day, met her over for coffee, sat down with her, and I said, are you okay? And she's like, no. She's like, my boyfriend left for an internship. My roommates met home. I'm living by myself. I'm here working. I haven't talked to another living soul except Chat GBT for a week, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm like, okay. So we sat down and talked about what was going on this summer and how much time she was going to be alone and some things she could do in the community because, I couldn't be her workout or her friend buddy or anything like that, but I could help guide her. And I thought about the layers of friction that she went through before she found my name as the person to call. And how many of our students are just this level of friction that keeps them from engaging. And I feel like our classroom's a good space to get rid of some of that friction in some way.
Dr.
So
Smith,
are there,
I had a thought for the instructors in the group here, and I'd be curious to know if anybody has done this, but creating assignments like a group assignment, maybe it's two people, maybe it's three people, but you encourage them to use AI to find the answers to certain questions, whatever those happen to be in your class. So not only are you encouraging that sort of group behavior, but like getting together and doing the thing, but then you're also kind of demonstrating to maybe young, inexperienced AI users that, like, hey, when we all search the same thing on AI, we get vastly different answers. And so you're sort of demonstrating to them, like, this thing is not, it doesn't know everything. It's not going to answer everything. It's sort of calibrated to you, who you are. And so almost demonstrating to them that it's not the end all be all that they think it might be. Just wondering if anybody has tried that or if there'd be any value in that.
yeah, I love that idea. Any thoughts on that?
I actually think one of our colleagues has done that recently in a class that he had done. I don't remember the exact kind of findings and experiences that he had kind of had, but he had done it in the context of a solo project, kind of looking at them using the AI, comparing the AI, having like a debrief and those sorts of things. My recollection is that the students' perceptions of it were kind of variable. And they saw kind of differences of utility, like they thought the AI was faster, but not always accurate. They thought their colleagues, a little less convenient, also not always accurate.
Yeah.
So there were kind of different pros and cons that they had for some of those kind of experiences. And I think I really appreciate that our colleague was doing that, and I think we got to do that more to kind of provide those experiences. But I'm not aware of too many others that have at least shared with me those kinds of projects.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Divine. I'm a GTA and a student of Masters in AQ Miller School of Communications. Last semester, I had a lecturer of mine do that. Were four in our class, international communications, and it was very nice because we're all from different countries. I'm from Nigeria. One of my classmates is from Mexico, and then two students from the United States. So we all had different backgrounds. My lecturer too is from South Korea, so different backgrounds, different understanding of things, and he asked us to use AI for the same question. And it was really nice to know that we all did not get the same response to things. We all did not get the same outcome, really different answers to the question. It was the same question, but really different answers. And we just saw that AI is just meant to be a tool, but not meant to be a person, and not meant to answer every questions that we had, and possibly might not even give us the best answers to the things we had. And one thing I also realized is AI always agrees with everything you say. So if I say, no, this is not what I'm looking for, it would always say, oh, I'm sorry, Divine, is this what you're looking for? And most of the times, 3, 4 times, is still not what I'm looking for. So it just tells me, well, Divine, you have to keep using your brain for this because it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that example. Um, I guess the point of all this was just to kind of propose some different ways to approach the responsibility that we all have all of us that utilize this tool. And I was listening to a couple of the contributors to the DSM-5 TR that are preparing for the updated version of the DSM. And they're looking at the research to support the idea of AI psychosis as potentially being a contributor to the DSM, moving forward as potentially a mental health challenge for folks who are really just getting so immersed in this and the idea that this really can be a space where all questions are answered, all needs are met, that can potentially produce some very significant mental health problems. And I did see a chat here, a chat comment that I wanted to read that let's see if I can get back here. We're on the fast track to an idiocratic society, and I feel like that's true. I feel like that's true. So, are there any other thoughts before we finish today on ways that we can be, and help our students be more human?
I think we got to start by being humans ourselves and hopefully modeling that humanity and authenticity, and we'll get a little closer. And I think we have to have more conversations like this where we admittedly don't have all the answers. I
Yeah.
think that in and of itself is kind of validating for those of us who are struggling with this issue.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna drop a post-reflection survey into the chat for you to complete, but hopefully all of you will help me thank Dr. Smith for sharing this insight today and for facilitating our questions and confusions and insecurities about this very important topic. Next week, our conversation will be about some need to know offices on campus, including CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychological Services, as well as CARE, which is the Center for Advocacy, Response, and Education. I apologize for not defining those acronyms earlier when I talked about that. A reminder, our professional development series will be Wednesdays at noon over Zoom all semester long, and we'll archive the recordings of these on our webpage. I would like to thank you for all that you do. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to be with us, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.